Thanks for tuning into the Gary Abbott Budget Watch channel. Appreciate all those that have subscribed recently. Keep subscribing. This is an unusual video for me. Watches has been my kind of thing for a long time. I actually started out with some higher end. Tag Heuer's was really where I started all the way back in the 90s. And those watches I wore a lot and I kept them. And I still have them, and believe it or not, those have kept the value of what I paid for them back in the 90s, which is great. But I have got into budget watch collecting, and I want to do a video on what I learned. What I have learned over the process. And at first I was just mesmerized by styles, looks, and what I've learned is I wish I had known, if somebody had done a video like I'm about to do for me, because I think I've learned a lot in the process of collecting, my wife would say, too many watches. So what I want to do here today is kind of go over my watch collection, but things that I kind of wish I knew when I first started, and what to look out for when you're selecting watches, and what would bring a watch up to a higher tier. Now, I recognize anybody can like any watch that they get, but some of the things I look for now, after collecting so many watches, I look for some things that are personal that I want as the function of the watch. It's one thing to tell time, but do you want a date? Do you want the day of the week? Do you want some other functions? Those are all important too. So let me show you a couple of things that I wish people told me about in the beginning. First, the difference between a leather band and, say, a bracelet, a Jubilee bracelet. Let's just talk bands. When you're into budget watches, I'm going to tell you, I recommend you always get the bracelet. For the $10, $20 more it might cost, it'll cost you a lot more if you decide to go for a bracelet later. Now, you can buy inexpensive bracelets, and I've done that, like on this one, on this Phoebus. I bought this off, I believe, Amazon, or it could have been Aliexpress. It was an inexpensive bracelet, fits and looks perfect because it came on a rubber strap. But I would always tell you, get the bracelet, buy the leather or NATO strap or whatever you like after the fact. Now that I have this Hamilton up, let me tell you what I look for now. I got this Hamilton. It was recommended. Teddy Baldassar. All these people love this Hamilton khaki automatic. I like it. It looks great here in the screen. But here's what it doesn't have. When you really look closely at the markers, it's slightly raised. And it is a big plus compared to a totally printed dial. But it's not much more than a printed dial. When I look at it, I have trouble. It's just because of the loom that they put on those numbers. But it's really a printed dial. Same for the Bernie here. So now I really look at indices. I really do. I look strongly at indices because when you look at a watch like one of my more recent purchases, this San Martin, I probably should have it going. This San Martin, if you look at the indices and you can see the silver and it's raised, the date window. So I really look at the dial now. If it's a printed dial, here's a true printed dial. It's flat, it's printed, it doesn't have any indices for the numbers. You can like this watch, but it doesn't have the raised indices. And so I really look at the dials now in a lot more dramatic way than I had in the past. I don't really rate the printed dials anywhere near as high as something that has a much more significant, here, let me pull another one out. Now we know this is somewhat of a copy or a homage, but if you look at this, definitely the 3, the 6, the 9 stand out a lot more. So raised indices I look for compared to a printed. Gives a little bit more value in the budget watch category. The other thing that I look at while I have this up is I will go something to like this San Martin. Both of these are kind of in the Rolex homages. But I look at these watches and I'm going to tell you something else about dials. A lot of people will give like, it's a 40 millimeter, it's a 39. But when I look at this dial of the San Martin, that inner where the dial is, not the bezel. Bezels can be big, and so the watch looks small. Now, some people like small watches if have small wrists, but what I've learned is I'm kind of not a huge fan of the smaller dial, even though it has a big bezel, depending on your wrist size. My wrist size is bigger, but on the dial, sometimes when you look at diameter, you have to look at diameter of the dial inside the bezel, because that can mean a big difference in what the watch feels and looks like. And you can just see these dials here are about the same size, but clearly this one appears bigger on the wrist than this one, even though it might be a little chunkier as a dive watch, but clearly that's something I look for. So dials really matter. I mean, they matter in a lot of ways, and now it's perfect to go in this other one, the date and the date window. Let's just look at another one. I'm just kind of bringing up random watches. This steel dive, I really like it. I like this light blue, but it's the date window. I've decided when I wear watches and I was working or wanted to know what date it was, if I have this watch on, I got no clue as to what the date is. As you get older, I like the date. I just like the date. So this really matters to me. I'm looking at the dial. These are all items within the dial. I like this Addie's Dive watch. I like that it has a date window, so functionally I can take a quick glance and look at it. And so date windows matter. Now, I'm not so particular on the location of the date window because I have mixed it up a little bit. These two are on the bottom at the 6 o'clock position, and they look nice. It is interesting that tastes matter. It's really, I got this Phoebus watch with the green, and then I got this San Martin watch with kind of its unique design. And it's funny, both of them have kind of grown on me on different usage, but sticking to the date window thing, I like the date window. I like it at the 6 o'clock, but it's okay at the 3 o'clock. But the style of these dials, it's funny, my wife the other night said, "What's that watch you're wearing?" And it was this one, the Phoebus with the green. And sometimes I've thought the green looks a little too dark, but she's like, "Oh, the dark is great." So you kind of go through phases. I have some bright watches, and I also have some more conventional. I have ended up wearing this Phoebus a lot more. It did come on a rubber strap. I do like this Jubilee bracelet on it. It's not a Phoebus Jubilee bracelet, but I do like it. So as I look at watches, the other part is bezels. You know, bezels can be just printed on the bezel. No kind of just printed bezels. Let me show you another one. Whether they're printed on, They might have the top marker, but you've got to appreciate if it's etched. And I'm looking at my watches and I have very few. I'm even having to look at it really close. This one has a better look. You can kind of tell on this one here. This one has a much better look when you look at the bezel. But it's kind of under the... I'm not even sure whether this is... I won't say because it won't get me in trouble. But when we look at date windows, Cyclops. I've had some Cyclops that have really no magnification. And then I've had others that have much higher magnification. So always take a look at the Cyclops to see what that magnification is, because that will make a difference. Some are slight magnification, some are 1.5. So there's a lot to look at when you look at dials. You can have a look-alike or a homage watch, but it doesn't have the raised indices that you would have. So I don't favor that much the printed dial. So I've talked about bracelets, I've talked about dials, a little bit about bezels, because bezels can range in how good they are, how not good they are. Sapphire crystals. Now this is not a sapphire crystal. Hardlex, Citizen does this a lot on their eco drives. They say they scratch a lot. This one here, I did like the looks of it. I really love the looks of it outdoors. Outdoors, this is fabulous. And it just shines through. Now, a little bit with the dial, it is the solar, so you kind of, the dials are somewhat on the eco drives. If you really look at them closely, it's funny, I thought that was a mark on there. It's the Citizen N that comes through. But you kind of get the drift here. These are things I wish I had looked at and understood. And then here comes the other one. So we got an eco drive, so it's battery. I'm not a huge fan of having battery watches because eventually they're going to die and you're going to have to open the back. Not a big deal like this one here. This Pagani homage of Moon's watch. This is a fun watch. This is more on the fun scale. Now, I just recently, they came out with a nice black version that has a date in the bottom. For me, dates are important. When I look at a watch and it doesn't have a date, even if I love the style, it makes me really question whether I'm going to get it. The other thing I got a Tissot, and I don't have it right here out for you, but on these chronographs, like this one, you see where the stopwatch mark is? How when you reset it, my Tissot doesn't line up right to the top. You can see kind of this one is pretty close, but the Tissot doesn't line up. Bugs the heck out of me. Really does. Bugs the heck out of me. Little details like that. The Tissot also has another one with a date window at the bottom, and some of the next dates start to show through. I didn't think little things like that would bug me, but they do. And then you end up don't wearing the watch. So I'd be very careful if you find a review where they have some of these, whether you can live with the nuance of looking at your watch, and even if it's a chronograph and that hand is supposed to be straight up to the 12 o'clock position and it's not, it can bug you. Movements. I will tell you, at first I really didn't look at movements all that much. And when you're into automatic watches, it's clear. NH34, NH35, those watches, the mechanical movement is excellent. There's some others, the seagull movement works great. Don't have any concerns of any of those. But some of the Chinese movements that they don't say. I've had watches that I got that didn't keep time very well. Had to open up the back and play with them. So movements matter. PT 5000s are good. What is it? The SW 200s, really good. But those usually cost you, the movement costs you another $100 in the cost of a watch. So when you're into budget watches, you know, sometimes you pick up a watch, and I'll show you this one. I picked up this watch I wanted the Paul Newman style. Now, on my wrist, it's a little small, but I just wanted the Paul Newman. I kind of have a story. I'm here in New Hampshire. The Sports Car Club of America used to come to New Hampshire. Paul Newman used to race. I think Tom Cruise raced here once. And I used to work in a filling station in the 70s, in which Paul Newman's wife used to come in and rent cars. We were a budget rental car, and Joanne Woodward would come in and rent the car. Yeah, I never saw Paul Newman, but I did get to see. And this was a watch that was gifted to him, and this went for a record price. His official watch, somebody gave it to him as a gift, and it went for so much money. This, of course, is a Pagani homage of that watch. And it's neat. It's more sentimental of, I have kind of this history that, I used to watch Paul Newman race, and I followed him for years. So, it's just kind of interesting to have a similar watch to his. But I wish people, when I first started collecting, take a look at the watches that you really like. Some of the expensive Rolexes, Omegas. Figure out what style you like. And then figure out on your daily usage, do you look at the date? Do you look at day date? Like a week date and all of that stuff, whether that's important to you. It may change your mind on which watch you pick out. I wish people kind of talked to me early on what watch to get, because it's never been that clear for me. I always have liked this style of watch, as you know in my other videos where I compare 3 of these homage watches. And of course, this is my favorite at 40. But I'm not afraid of 42. Size does matter. I mean, so many people say 39 is fine. I'm not finding always. I mean, you've got to find what looks good on your wrist. Sometimes a big watch on my wrist looks okay. I like the looks or the feel of it. It's kind of like this Phoebus watch. This is not a small diver's watch. And it's got 300 meters of water resistance. It's a true diver's watch. And, it feels and wears like a diver's watch, but it's a good watch. I hope you enjoyed this video. These are some things to look for. When you're buying a watch. I wish somebody had done a video like this for me back when I was watch collecting. I enjoy my watch collecting, but I have to be careful. At some point, either I've got to start selling some of these watches, or I have a mean rotation that I need to do. But this Citizen watch out of my collection is kind of unique in that it's solar, my only eco drive, and when I'm in the pool and I'm playing water volleyball, this thing looks gorgeous. This thing just reflects the sunlight. It is the watch. Now, I've seen some others that are blue. They look good. I like it. So, most of my watches I like. What you've seen today, there's really nothing here that I don't like. And probably another one. This is the budget watch collector. I'm telling you, if you're looking for an inexpensive watch that you'll be very happy with, and you didn't buy an SKX back when they were 200-meter watches, and you missed it, but you want that look, this is it. This is that look. 200-meter automatic, and I'm pretty sure I got this for under $100 with this bracelet. This is the steal. If you're looking for a watch to steal, and it has a date window. So how can you lose? All right, I've run on and on. Hopefully you got something out of this, what my recommendations are, and what to look for and watch. But if you can, look for a watch that you really like. Thanks for watching. Watch for the next video. And subscribe. Helps me out. Send me a comment if you like this type of video.